For the past 3 days, Abuja has been the meeting point for some of Africa's leading civil society voices, regulators, and policy experts. Their mission: finding common ground on how to combat financial crime while protecting the civic space that drives development, accountability, and democratic participation across the continent. As the conversation continues, Per Second News will continue to bring you live updates.
It is just 1 out of every 4 households, particularly in northern Nigeria, that has access to a bank account. And we had this event between Kaduna and Plateau, where we were supposed to have some kind of support system for villagers. And this particular woman had traveled for over 50 kilometers on their foot to the venue where this empowerment program was meant to happen. And unfortunately on that morning, because of course there is also the control around the cash movements. So we waited on that morning to get to the bank that was closer to be able to make transaction, only to realize that we have a post-no debit on our account. And after a lot of effort, it was a case of, okay, we need to resubmit some documentation which we had submitted previously over and over before. And unfortunately that day we couldn't make that activity happen. So somehow we had to discharge and put a new date. And this woman walked back another 50 kilos. And unfortunately for us, and this is a burden, by the time she got back home, she went into forced labor. And then of course gave birth and she died. And for us, we believe that compliance goes beyond paperwork. When you try to put overtly big restrictions on the activities of NPOs, it is not just paperwork. It goes beyond that. What we are seeing is that there is a threat to the lives of people out there.
You receive a fund, let's assume it's a clean fund, no issues. But when you're giving your beneficiaries the monies distributing, you might distribute it to somebody that is maybe has a terrorist mindset or arrangement with them. That also comes to the bank because they've paid that person. So when we are doing this, you know, there's an obligation on the bank. KYC, know your customer. In this case, the customer is you, the NPOs. KYCC, know your customers' customers. KYCB, know your customer's business. So all this are encapsulated in the KYC. So that means the banks need to be very careful while onboarding. That's onboarding stage. Transaction stage. Okay, even before then, any document that is missing, we have supervisors. The central bank comes to the bank on a regular basis to check documentation and other things aside transactions. So if a document that is needed to open an account and operate it is missing, there are heavy penalties for that.
Our own model in supporting the NPO sector, for example, considering that very small population is on financial inclusivity, what the banks have done in South Sudan is that they have come up with their own model. They call it agency banking, where banks are concentrated within the capital, neglecting the other areas of the country. So what happens is that the banks would appoint agents within the local areas where the bank services are not there and entrust them with some responsibilities. This is just a way of ensuring that the NPO sector is given responsibility or is given the services that is required. However, there are challenges that came in with the working group. For example, there were no enough resources, for example, to support the functions of the working group. Although the government provides an element of support, but that is not sufficient in terms of capacity, in terms of resources, and in terms of engaging in the entire sector.
Kenya was one of the countries that adopted the FATF Recommendation 8 perfectly. Now, my question is, one of the biggest concerns around the Recommendation 8 is the unintended restriction of civic space. Okay, so how has your country balanced national security objectives with the need to protect legitimate civil society activities?
Fantastic. I think the way that my country has been working towards achieving this balance, first of all, I'll argue that it has not been a perfect balance.
Okay.
There's been issues in the past, there's been challenges that we're working through. Some of our colleagues and organizations faced deregistration from the government. They were accused of terrorism and they faced certain challenges because of those policies and laws around countering the financing of terrorism. But these were usually without evidence. So what I can say has changed now, especially since Kenya has been grey-listed, is that the country is working with a more risk-based approach in mind, which really requires us to rely on evidence. So one of the main things that have helped is that the country, jointly with non-profit organizations, conducted the sectoral risk assessment for non-profit organizations, understanding the terrorism financing risks that face the sector. This is useful because it allows for practice to be led by evidence. It led to a lower rating, so it rated non-profits as having very low vulnerability to terrorism financing, which is the first step in really ensuring the good practice that you're asking about. And secondly has also been the consistent partnership with the regulator. This has been very useful, working together to develop policy frameworks, to conduct outreach to nonprofits, to sensitize people on the issue that's ongoing in other countries. And really this is a step in the positive direction, the step in the right direction towards ensuring that nonprofit organizations are not unfairly targeted or discouraged.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so finally, before we let you go, is there any key message you will like policymakers across Africa to take away from this conference regarding FATF Recommendation 8? And what would that be?
Fantastic. I think my key message would be that security objectives and human rights objectives are not analogous. They're not different from each other. They don't contradict. It's not contradictory to have both security and to protect civic space. Countries need to make sure that all their security objectives, their efforts, are taken with a human rights lens in mind, particularly when it comes to dealing with the issues of terrorism financing. What we are learning from other regulators, other civil society in the room, is that it's possible for this work to be done with respect for human rights and with respect for civic space. So particularly governments and regulators need to take what we are learning from this as an opportunity to have more partnership with civil society. I think what this forum is saying and the fact that it's been organized by Spaces for Change, a leading CSO in Africa, is really telling us that civil society is an asset, not a threat. And it's up to the government to use that asset to actually achieve the goals that they want, even if they're security-related objectives.
So Mozambique is one country that was used as an example for the perfect implementation of the FATF Recommendation 8. Now, from your country, one of the biggest concerns of the Recommendation 8 is a lot of countries are not adopting it. What examples can countries adopt from your country in implementing the FATF?
Well, first of all, I think the main issue that can be adopted is the working together. So collaboration between civil society, government, and the banks, including the banks. You may know that banks, also the government itself, the regulations may affect civil society. In that sense, I think the constitution of a coordination mechanism with these three sectors, I think it's very important. From our experience, it became useful from the risk assessment, which was done together, to the regulation itself. Of course, we still face challenges.
Yes.
And the main challenge in this process is to guarantee that the frontliners, implementers, the regulators, frontliners, have also the information, are trained, and understand what should have to be done. Of course, also civil society needs also to understand what are the measures that have to be in place in their own organizations. The second thing is about self-regulation within the organizations. I think it's very important. We launched self-regulation. We include trainings among us, exchange of experiences, which is also important. The third thing, I think, is these partnerships that we have, bringing and being in a more shared space with organizations from different parts of the continent. Allow us to learn. And it's not just civil society here, it's also the FATF, called FATF Sisters bodies,
Okay.
and also financial institutions from different countries.
Yes.
These allow us to learn what works well and not works well. So I think these are the issues that I can push, and I think that they are relevant for the countries to adopt. And of course, there is a lot of need for leadership within the organization, within the civil society, and the continuous follow-up of the issues. In some countries where the unintended consequences are not just, they're not unintended in a way, there is a mix with a close or restrictive governments that they want to control civil society. There is a need to continuous follow-up, to continuous mobilizing civil society, changing narratives within the mass media, so that this is important. So that to make sure that the FATF Recommendation 8 is well implemented.
Can you tell us what these 3 days have been about and what the experience has been for you?
So over the last 3 days, one thing we are living here is a consensus that the measures that are being rolled out to combat money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism, in some ways, there are gaps within systems in Africa that need to be closed. And those systems are responsible for either blanket crackdowns, blanket risk ratings, or regulatory burdens for non-profit organizations. There is a consensus that, yes, there are gaps in the system that are responsible for those constrictions. And the beautiful thing is that there is also consensus and steps need to be taken to address those gaps. So countries express commitment to take steps to address whatever gaps that are within their systems. And also there is a commitment for peer learning, for peer review, for constant engagement, for constant interaction, for
collaboration.
Yes, for collaborations. And that is beautiful, because that is one of the gains of the conference, is to foster collaboration, foster dialogue, so that we can, like one of the speakers said, we can find African solutions to African problems.
I'm Joycelyn Ella Keche Ada, reporting for PSN.